Okay, good afternoon, folks. I am Pete McGuinness of the William Paterson University Jazz Room Concert Series, and today's performer for this special Valentine's Day Jazz Room is the one and only Marion Cowings. Marion Cowings is one of the finest jazz singer this art form has ever produced, and has been singing a long time and is still one of the strongest voices that I've ever heard in a number of different ways. If you're not familiar with Marion's singing style, you're in for a huge treat. The man has one of the most beautiful baritone voices you've ever heard in your life, but he can also sing high. He's got an amazing instrument. His level of dynamics can go from a whisper to a full-throated barrel of sound all in the same song, and it's enjoyable to hear where this gentleman can take a song. Today is going to be focused on love songs, of course, because today is Valentine's Day. So it's apropos that the material that Marion Cowings will be singing with his group will be love songs. And there's plenty of those in the jazz world, in the world of American popular standards. And I don't even know what he's going to sing. Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that, unless you don't want to give too many spoiler alerts away. Marion is a native of New York City and attended the famous high school for artistic kids, the LaGuardia High School in New York City. Also studies the Manhattan School of Music before hitting the scene. His mentor, one of his mentors, was the great Jon Hendricks. And one of Marion's early accolades is he was the first replacement for Dave Lambert in the famous Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. Going on to doing a ton of gigs with a ton of people, which we'll talk about today. I'm not going to get into the whole resume, but know that Marion has virtually done it all with a ton of different people playing at all the major venues, everything from Lincoln Center to Jazz at Lincoln Center, the Kennedy Center, I meant to say, all the major clubs, the Village Vanguard, the Blue Note, you name it. He's been a recipient of a National Endowment for the Arts grant. And please welcome Marion Cowings to Jazz Room. Welcome, Marion.
Hey, Pete. How are you? What an intro.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you. The story, Mother. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here. Hey, we're going to have some fun at Valentine's Day, right? Unless, you, of course, you're the one with the broken heart because you were dumb. No. Even then, we're going to, I defy myself to think of a American standard that's not about love. I mean, you just, stretch it. Think about, just write down, you'll come up with about 3 or 4 tunes, maybe a Night in Tunisia. No, even that, I know, they're all about love. Love, I've tried it all. I've tried power, wealth, and some other things that I can't mention, but love is top of the list. So to all you lovers out there, cherish the ones you have and bring them on, and this is your day. And if you forgot, today is the day. Okay, you could forget Christmas, you can forget Hanukkah, but you cannot forget Valentine's Day or you're in big hot water, okay?
They'll have to slip out after this is over, and they'll have about 10 minutes before your gig begins, so they're gonna have to slip out to the store real fast. And
that's right.
Back. Where did you go, honey? Oh, I beat you. And then watch the concert. Yeah, I mean, there's so many songs that are so well crafted with love as its theme. Clearly it's an important emotion, and especially the romantic songs with those wonderful harmonies and melody structures.
Yep. There's that's what it's all about. That's the best thing on the planet. Period. If we could get that together, we'd have a nice planet. All the great, the great leaders and the great, messiahs and all those cats and chicks. We're always talking. The one thing they wanted us to do was to love each other. That was the mandate, And if we could get that together, boy, what a sweet planet this would be.
Let me talk a little bit about before we talk more about the music that we might be hearing today. And if you don't want to give too many spoilers, that's fine. But maybe we'll talk about what attracts you to certain melodies.
That's a good question.
That's very personal for so many people, But I really would love. I'm a member of a vocal group, as you know, called the Royal Bobsters, and
very famous. Heard you on the radio this morning at 1 o'clock, but not for me. Really great, man. I really, with that amazing Chet Baker solo that you guys
That was fun.
stole, no, borrowed, no, used. It's great, man.
Oh, I tried to get the rights, trust me, and I never heard it. I did. I honest to God did. We have to get the rights to everything. We've had to jump through some hoops on some of this stuff. I'm sure maybe Jon Hendricks and Dave in the old days, I think it was more like the Wild West maybe in the 50s and 60s than it is now in terms of legal stuff.
Legal stuff, yep,
yeah,
you're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
But this is huge to me, to be someone who spent time, well, I don't know what exactly you did, studied with and then sang with the great Jon Hendricks, who's such a towering figure in all of jazz and jazz vocal work. Can you talk a little bit about those days you were with Jon and what that meant to you and what it was like and getting into Leonard Hendricks? Well, it would be not that, it would be Cowings, Hendricks, and Ross. Is that
I met them. I met them when I was 15 years old. Eddie Gomez was in the Newport Youth Band, and he said, "I'm going to see Jon Hendricks when I go up to play Newport, and I'll tell him that there's this guy in New York that sings his tunes." And then one day I got a phone call from him, and it was he said, "I want meet me at Birdland." So I told my dad, you know, this jazz guy wants me to meet him at Birdland. So my father said, "Yeah, bring your older brother with you. You know, go." So then that was just it. We just started singing, and I had a group like theirs, Cowings, Cummings, and Lang. And the six of us actually sang one Sunday afternoon at the Vanguard when I was a mere lad. Oh. And in terms of teaching, I just copied everything he did. He never said to me, "Okay, sing this, do that, raise your voice, lower your thing." The one thing he did tell me was, "You got to stay in tune." That was the one little thing that and I remembered it, you know. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of adventures. I was also Dave was a very dear friend of mine, and I helped him form his next group after he left that group because I knew the singers in town. Sarah Boatner, you know, was in that group, and we had a lot of fun. You know, that band, Dave's new band, didn't get signed, but they were great. Dave was a great arranger.
Is that the one with the videos at the RCA audition stuff?
Yes. Yeah, Leslie Dorsey.
Cozy and all that stuff.
That's right. I brought those people to Dave. They were all friends of mine. And yeah, and they worked out. I didn't stay in that group because, you know, Dave and his voice and mine were like in the same thing. So he wanted a real baritone. So Leslie Dorsey, the great Leslie Dorsey, came in for that one. And we had a lot of fun. You know, fun was what it was all about. I mean, that was what it was about. And Dave I learned a lot from him too. I learned a lot from him.
Did he did, I know Jon did the line, correct me if I'm wrong, but with Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, Jon did the lion's share of the vocalist work and Dave did the arranging, or was it like kind of shared? They all wrote.
Well, Jon wrote the words, Dave did the arranging, and Les Paul, I'll tell you a little story about how they got together at Jean Bach's house. It was the first time they were ever together, famous woman, Jean Bach. Jon and Dave wanted to do like a vocal big band. So they hired these 17 singers to come in and read Dave's charts of like the Basie, which were, you know, transcriptions of Basie. And they could read shit off fly paper, but they couldn't swing. Mm-hmm. The only one of them that could swing was a woman named Annie Ross. Yeah. So they kept her. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, I don't know exactly when it happened, but Les Paul approached Jon and Dave and said, "Look, I got this new way of recording. We can record more than 2 tracks now. We can record as many tracks as we want." And he gave them the technology and the recording ability to record their own voices multiple times and multi-tracking. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the results are history. Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross sing a song of Basie, sing along with Basie. Mm-hmm. That's all because Les Paul gave them the studio. And that's how they got it done.
It's remarkable, especially with Annie Ross singing some of those super high notes, man. It's like, a lot of times it was like, here's the two male voices and here's her up here. But it works in a way because, they're kind of singing high and she's singing high, so they kind of works. But then when they could, overdub themselves, she could have like two more trumpets underneath her.
Exactly.
So the sound of the ensemble could be more like that. It was such a great recording. One of the great albums of all time. Everybody should own it.
That's right. That's one of the things that got me into their group, and John was, he was the James Joyce of jive. That's not my original quote, but he wrote words to every note of every solo of the members of the Basie band, and I memorized those solos, and I still use them today. It was quite amazing. It was what a fun time that was. Yeah. And then then I did other stuff. Then I met up with this gal named Kim Shaw, was her name at the time, Kim Kalesti. She went back to her maiden name, and we did stuff together. We at the request of Tom Boris, who was in charge of the jazz department at New York University. He was also in one of our bands. He played in our 9-piece band, and he said, well, why don't you teach it? We have students that want to learn jazz, and they're all going to Berkeley, or and they're not coming to us. So we started the vocal jazz department at NYU, which is still up and running and giving degrees. And we were there for 11 years, teaching and guiding people, all kinds of things. That's I got my teaching chops refined. I was left alone, and in other words, I didn't have to go to all the meetings of the faculty, which is like, it's a terrible death to be talked to death, if you know Mark Twain's quote. It's a horrible death to be talked. But I was able to work there, and then after that, I started my own school, finishing school for saloon singers, which it's like the floating crap game and Guys and Dolls. 1 week it was here, 1 week it was that building, the bar store, but and this is the beginning. There was no real internet at that time, so I'm talking about, I don't know what year, but the internet was a baby in 1995, 1990. Right. So that was good. That was good. I had a lot of great accompanists. Harry Whitaker played for my class for many years, and our class, and that was a lot of fun too. So and then I did it at Small's Jazz Club for about 7 years, every Sunday, when Mitch Borden was there, and he stumble out of bed and open the door, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 2, and get us going. And Spike is still there, and he's up and running. I got to give him credit, Spike, I take back everything I said about you. He's at the business wherewithal to,
They're trying to keep it alive. Everybody's trying, in this time of COVID, man, everyone's like reinventing the world just with, streaming things and trying to get some help. And it's rough. I really hope the jazz clubs can stick this out,
Well, it's rough out there. It's rough. We have to completely reinvent ourselves, as you know, which we're doing right now. We're reinventing ourselves.
Right.
And we got a concert coming up in a few minutes, and we'll be behind plastic screens. Okay, so the singer, we're not super spreaders on the gig. It's important. It's important to play it safe. We won't be safe until everybody's safe. We won't until most of the world gets vaccinated. It was like polio. I remember when I was a kid. That was what everybody was afraid of catching, and FDR got it. If he could get it, anybody can.
Yeah. Well, I'm very encouraged about the news of, obviously we all are, of the vaccine, and vaccines plural, and how many months that's going to take to get into everybody, and then we still have to wear masks for a while, and blah 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 blah. But I hope that once a lot of the vaccines are out there and a lot of people have gotten over it, the summer will open for outdoor gigs. Like summer jazz festivals where an artist on the stage, like the Charlie Parker Festival in the summers.
Right. Yeah,
that is about that.
That would be great. We're looking forward.
Newport, maybe Newport will run, because those are all outdoor venues.
Right.
I hope. You know, gosh, that could be the beginning of the return, the outdoor venues this summer. And I think we all hope that that will happen, certainly for the artists to get a chance to get some gigs somewhere.
Absolutely, man. And I want to thank you and William Paterson for giving us a gig. And when I say us, I mean Noriko Ueda on bass, Jerome Jennings on the drums, and the brilliant Joe Davidian on piano. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've worked with that trio on a few gigs, and so it's not a blind date like a lot of the jazz gigs are. You know, when you show up and you know who's the drummer, you know who's the piano player. You know, we've had a couple of gigs, not many, maybe 2 or 3 together. So, and we're friends, and I think our friendship will show up on the bandstand.
Excellent, fantastic. Well, you know, just to let the audience know, I've actually had the pleasure of working with Marion once in my life, going back quite a ways, like 1990 or 1990. It was a gig in Club Med Martinique. I was playing trombone in the horn section, backing you and Kim up, and that was, I mean, crazy fun. You know, it was like, you know, we played every night, and then in the daytime, you know, we're treated like royalty, and I'm parasailing off speedboats, you know, and swimming in the ocean, and man, it was a kick. I'll never forget that.
Well, these French guys owned it. They loved jazz, and they had their own plane, and they owned all the clubs. They didn't pay their workers that much,
No.
but a lot of people would go there to work because I mean I met a guy in this surfer shop. Yeah, I said, why did you come here to work for like $100 a month? And he said, well, in high school I was a surfer, and I got out, and that's all I want to do is surf, and I didn't know where to go.
And they take care of them. It was like a constant paid vacation, not
Exactly.
quasi-paid vacation, something.
Exactly.
Like
It's it's
that.
changed. I mean, ownership. I don't know who owns it now. Maybe Disney. I don't know, but it's different. It's different. But we had a ball, and I remember your playing, and you saved the day because the Barry sax player didn't show
I read
up.
the Barry book, right? I had to read the Barry book, and I'm the trombone, so I'm like, it was easy enough to transpose.
What a blessing that you were there, man, swinging.
And we had like
Swinging.
good pals there too. Like Claire was playing saxophone, Claire Daly, and
Right.
and John Gordon was there, and Bill Charlap was playing piano. Bill Charlap.
I've heard of him. Yeah, Bill. Yeah, he teaches at your school now. He's there. Hello, Bill. In case you're watching.
I hope Bill's watching. He was the first time I met Bill, and it was 30 years ago, man. So now I've done some things with him along the way, but now we're colleagues here at William Paterson. He was.
I remember hearing a tinkling piano at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I strolled down to the beach.
And was Bill?
And there was Bill practicing, and I was playing a tune. I can actually even remember the tune, but I will before the end of this interview. But I went, man, darn that dream he was playing, and I went, and I never I like the melody, but the words. And I'm a tough guy from the Bronx. I don't say darn. Okay, that's gonna come out of my mouth.
Doesn't have enough punch, right?
Some words don't come out of my mouth, like men's warehouse. You'll never hear those words come out of my lips. I like to be sharp. But Bill was playing it, and he was taking his time, and he was visiting with every note, and it really got to me, man. And I started singing that song, and I still love it. I still love it.
May I steal that? That's a marvelous expression. Visit every note.
I stole that from Wayne Shorter. I stole it from Wayne Shorter. One time I was doing a gig and with Mulgrew Miller, and I asked him about, I'm the published lyricist for one of Wayne Shorter's tunes, Fee Fi Fo Fum.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I said, you worked with him. He writes these melodies like on this, one of my favorite albums of all time is Speak No Evil.
Absolutely.
That's one of the ones I'm going to take with me when I go on the other side. And I said, man, how does he come up with these melodies? So Mulgrew said to me, well, I asked him, how do you get these melodic ideas? And Wayne looked up, and then he came back down to me and he said, I go upstairs and visit with every note. That's how he does it.
Wow, man. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Wayne and Mulgrew. Mulgrew was really great too. I mean, I was very. I did a gig with him when he just came off the Ellington. He just came off Betty Carter. And it was at Green Street, a place called Green Street. And the first set, he was upstairs, man. He was like Bud Powell, And I said in the dressing room, could you think of me as an old man? And like, like slow it down just a little bit. And he immediately changed to the role of accompanist. And I loved him a lot, as many others did.
I don't know if you know this, but before Bill Charlap, he was the director right before Bill Charlap here at William Paterson for many years.
I know. I sang at his funeral at his wife's request. I didn't. What
did you sing? I wasn't there. I couldn't be there. What song did you sing? Remember?
Give me a second. Give me 2 seconds.
Didn't mean to put you on.
Give me 3 seconds. No, it's the one about. There's the lyric in it. The russet brown. The something russet brown. The da 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 da. And
we'll figure it out before this is over, I'm sure.
Yeah, before it's over, before I die, I'll remember the name of the tune. But okay. It was early autumn.
Oh, early autumn. Do, 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 do.
Yeah.
Wow, that's not an easy song to sing. That's got a lot of changes and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. I love it. I love it. I remember on the way to the gig, I was with a piano player who drove me to the gig, to the funeral in Pennsylvania, because how else are we going to get to this small town in Pennsylvania? Mm-hmm. And he said to me, I'm trying to remember his name now. I'm sorry, man, about that's something that happened on the gig that we played 35 years ago. I want to apologize for you. I said, what? Would you sleep with my wife? What do you mean? What happened? He said, well, I just got out of music college and I never learned how to play endings for songs. Mm. So I didn't know what to do. After the first set, I panicked. And the drummer was Joe Jones Jr. And I said, Joe, I don't know how to end. I don't know how to end. What should I do? So Joe Jones says, well, what's wrong with da 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 da? So every tune, the second set ended. It could be a wrist-slitting ballad. And
I thought, funny.
This is his sense of humor, and then when he
God.
started teaching out there, one of the things that he made the students do right away was you got to work on some tags, okay? Because you're going to have to come up with some various tags. I'm trying to remember his name, but anyway. Yes. So I had, my life has been really sweet, man. I've been really privileged to play with the people that I've worked with and perform with them, and doors have always been open for me for some mysterious reason. I know.
To me, it's not a mystery at all, man. I've been, enjoying before this interview, reminding myself of your singing, and I've gone back and listened to several recordings. And I was knocked. I mean, I just listened to something you did many years ago. My Foolish Heart. I mean, I'm just listening to this thing.
That was arranged by Howard Johnson.
The arrangement's wonderful. Is it a big band or a strings behind it? I can't remember.
A 9-piece.
Okay, so
9-piece band.
Who wrote the chart? Do you remember?
Howard Johnson wrote the chart.
Really?
Rest in peace, Howard.
Yeah, I didn't know how much of an arranger. I forgot how much of an arranger he was because I read his obit recently. Talked about his tuba playing and his sax playing, right? But right. I forgot how much he was like a musical director of horn sections and arranger for so many people. That was really
even Saturday Night Live. He did a lot of the arrangements for them.
Right. But what I want to say, and the audience will hear, this is not a spoiler alert. Just listening to your singing there, you're at one moment you're whispering. You're like a wisp of a sound. And then all of a sudden the melody rises or the drama rises or the band gets louder. And all of a sudden your voice takes on this full-throated quality that was not like a different person, but I'm like, oh, it's like something like a flower.
I stepped on the gas.
You stepped on the gas.
I stepped on the gas.
But not everybody has that ability to go back and forth between an intimate, smaller sound and a larger sounding voice.
What I've found is that a lot of singers, when we're starting out, like we're afraid of our own power. We're afraid of, it's going to sound like dog poo-poo up there when we get loud or we get too high. And getting over that and beginning to like yourself, beginning to like your own sound up there full-throated, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. You got to be sure it's going to be okay. And if the cops come, start singing about Jesus. If they knock down your door, like you just go into religious music and wave an American flag and they'll leave you alone.
Hopefully, not always.
Not always.
Yikes.
Not always.
No,
Not always. Okay, maybe that's a wrong image, but they're afraid of religious music. If you switch to a religious tune, they usually leave you alone.
That's funny. Well, but you really do have this ability, and it's almost.
Thank you.
It's like as much as the way you sing lyrics and the way you're careful to emote the meaning of the lyric. It's just listening to your sound is part of the journey too. So I encourage people today as they listen to not only how Marion can tell the story of a lyric and put the drama into it. A lot of singers can do that, but the way his sound can change depending on the drama of the music. I rarely hear this in singers, even some of the most famous ones. So
they used to tease me at Manhattan School of Music when I was back there in 1963. Oh, you're a crooner? Oh yeah, you're a crooner. Get a mic, get close to the mic. You can't do what we can do. You can't do what we can do. And the one takeaway I got from for those 4 years of opera training was how to get loud. Right. How to not be afraid of my own power. And that's, I as much as the way I feel about that school, which frowned on jazz in 1963 and they only came around to it when they started feeling the financial heat from other schools, Berkeley, and they were losing every penny. The same thing happened at NYU. It's a financial consideration. We got to have we got to compete with these other students. So anyway, that was my takeaway. I mean, when I went to Manhattan School of Music, from 1963 till 1960, I don't know, whatever, there was no jazz. There was no, I'm going to tell the story. If you played jazz in your practice room, if you were a pianist that practicing jazz, somebody might tell your teacher on you that you were hurting your chops, you were ruining your chops. Okay, for music appreciation, I wrote about Ella Fitzgerald, and so the teacher says, "Who is that? Who is that?" Yeah, I said, "She's America's greatest jazz singer." And don't take my word for it. Bing Crosby said that. Okay, right. You don't have to take my. You might as well be talking to me about the Beatles. I said, "Man, I'm in the wrong school. I'm in the wrong school, man. These cats are dragging me out of my groove. I want to, And then I realized every serious art form has traditions to uphold, and just like ballet, just like the ballet or an opera has like a 300-year-old tradition that it has to hold and it holds on to, But nobody at that school at that time was clever enough to tell me that, that's what we're doing here, and we don't integrate it with American music or American singing styles. That's not our bag. We can't deal with it. We don't understand it. So take a hike.
Yeah,
so,
but let me just say, these moments where I was talking about with the full-throated thing, I hear some kind of training happen, because it's strong and the vibrato control is superb, and the sound is super full in a high range too, and the low range. Your range is very large. So are you saying that some of that ability came from some of this training you got, or is it partly your natural gift, or was there?
Well, I'm a natural singer. The training, I had to unlearn the training, because the training was so specific to that tradition that my teachers told me, don't try to sing above a middle C. don't do it. You're a bass. I was working on the bass repertoire. They needed basses at that time. So I was with all bass. So I developed my lower register by learning all these art songs that were sung in the bass register. And then when I came, but then on the weekends, I do my rock and roll top 40 gig with bands like Bobby Colomby and really great artists. We're in the weekend, and I'd be singing soprano, Smokey Robinson and those cats, and I'm saying, well, I can sing up there too, but that was not welcome in my strict training as a bass. So I guess that was in there, but when I had to find the courage to croon past middle C, to go. And so like I stole from guys that were comfortable with F's and G's. And that's what I did. I sing along. I'd sing along with Mel. I'd sing along, with different cats.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask too. Do you want to? Is it inappropriate to ask about some of your influences? But maybe when you were younger, like who turned you on? Maybe recordings of people like, oh, something about that person.
Yeah, I like Jack Jones's chops. I liked his chops, and he could sing a G, and I went, man, if he can do it, I can do it. I also listened a lot to the blues. I listened a lot to blues singers, and I do gigs strictly as a blues singer as well. You wouldn't know that I didn't come from the farm because I don't talk that much in between tunes. I do my best impersonation of Junior Wells, Muddy Waters, and Bobby Blue Bland, and Freddie King, and the cats that I admired. I do those kinds of gigs too. I don't know who else do I admired a lot of people. I mean, Victor Moan had beautiful pipes.
Sure.
He was copyable.
So many of those singers were expected to have great sounds. Like Jack Jones, Victor Moan, people like that you just mentioned, Matt Monroe, all those cats of that era. It seemed like that was part of the thing, to have a beautiful sound and a clear thing.
A clear thing, a clear on.
You do.
They wanted, there was a period then when it was cool to be masculine, and it was cool to have a masculine baritone sound, and these guys embraced that. And then later on, it wasn't cool. It was like, why are you trying so hard to have tone? Like back off. Like Smokey Robinson it, man, or do something like a wispier, breathier tone, which has still become very popular in the pop world. And Michael was that way. Michael Jackson had also, he could step on the gas, but the parts of him that were boy soprano, he kept it in the act as falsetto.
Do you have any? I mean, when I hear you, I also, at least part of the back of my mind touches on people like Johnny Hartman, and because of your range, probably because of your range, it's such that warmth of the low register you have, where it just fills the floor with sound, kind of thing.
Well, that Johnny Hartman Coltrane record was very influential in my life. And I got a gig at a place on Bleecker Street, Lush Life, with my ex, with Kim. And Johnny Hartman was right there in the audience 5 nights in a row.
Oh my God.
In front. Can you imagine the terror that went through me to see this cat in the front row? I loved Coltrane. Coltrane to me, and Bach. I put certain cats, Beethoven, Coltrane, Charlie Parker. I put those cats way up on a pedestal, in terms of human contributions to this planet. And right now, it's very, very important that we artists, we musicians and painters and dancers, and we double down on our craft, and we bring the world back together, because somehow what we do glues people together. Countries lie, governments lie, and but music makes sound rational.
That's nice.
And that's why it's universal.
Now let me ask you this, because today we're going to be saying, I don't necessarily want you to tell the audience what you're going to, let's surprise them. But let me ask you a question. We've got I'd say we had about 7 minutes left. I want to cut off. I don't want to go over time, so we're going to cut off a touch early. What draws you to a song to choose to sing? I mean, I suppose there's songs that people ask you to sing, or you're expected to sing sometimes, or.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's in my experience. Why do I like this song and this next song next to it doesn't mean anything. The way the melody, what the melody does to my brain, it sort of like burns a pathway, a new song, and I hear it, and it burns a pathway into my brain, the melody, and it organizes my brain in a certain way that makes me feel good. And then the words have to be about my life. If I have to be singing about me, otherwise it's me interpreting somebody else's experiences. And
Yeah.
so those are two things. There's something about a melody that attracts me. It's very mysterious. I don't know what it is. I do remember I was in a backseat of a car in Darien, Georgia, and I was about 8 years old. And I heard the Hi-Los singing a song, "Try to think that love's not around." A minor, yeah. In C minor. And I always remembered it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because there's not that many minor melodies in the pop world, but Angel Eyes.
Yes.
And then when I grew up and I heard it again, I was, oh yeah, I remember that one. You know, it was in there. It was in there.
Funny. So it's like a memory almost too. It's like you hear a song later, and then you hear this song later in life, and it flashes back on maybe the first time you heard it or something. Is that what you're kind of hitting?
Absolutely, because music is such a force to our brains. And I've done enough gigs in nursing homes to watch, Uncle Louie, who hasn't spoken in 6 months, singing along with me to the words of a song that hit from his youth. And the nurses are amazed. How did you do it, man? I go, no, I didn't do it. It's the power of music and the power of memory. It's like a laser beam into the song's like a laser beam into their past.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings back those memories so completely clearly.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of research. I mean, if you have an ancestor or relative, not an ancestor, if you have a living relative with who's had a stroke or who has Alzheimer's, you make a playlist on your phone of the songs that from their childhood or that they liked, and you put that playlist in the phone, and you put the headphones on, you stick it on Uncle AB's ears, and watch Uncle AB come back to life.
Yeah,
and that's how much power music has. That's the power, the memory, just how far and deep it goes into our subconscious.
Yeah, I had that experience with my mom too. I mean, her thing was she was a young lady in the 50s, so I would play songs that were her favorites when she was having dementia, and you could see her face change, and sometimes she'd start to sing along with the recording, and it was quite remarkable. So grateful for that.
Yeah, they're discovering that in music therapy. They give me degrees out and all that stuff, but it's stuff that you and I know from being musicians and from having experiences with loved ones.
Yeah. Well, when you've written some songs, right?
Well, I'm mostly a lyricist. I wrote songs for my rock bands. When jazz took a nosedive in the 70s, all the clubs started closing, and they took jazz off the commercials on TV, and then the westerns had jazz on them, Paladin and all those. Then I started with a rock band and R&B. I did that for 10 years, and I wrote songs for that group. I had many groups, most of them called Dada, and I had the Oxton Creeper. I had a band called the Depression All Stars. We played at a place called Max's Kansas City, and then. But mostly lyricist, and I'm a lyricist because I wanted to impress my teacher. I wanted to impress my mentor, Jon Hendricks, that I could do what he could do. And so I wrote lyrics. I wrote lyrics to Freddie Freeloader.
Yes, I heard them. They're amazing. They're great. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if I'll be able to perform them on our show, but thank you. I did know Freddie Talbot. I was at a place doing a gig in the snow on 3rd Street, and it was the middle of the winter. Kenny Barron, Eddie Gomez, Al Foster, and Gary Bartz. I couldn't get anybody good, so I had to go to Union Hall. No, that was the band. And in from the snowstorm, in walks Freddie Talbert and sits in the front row while I'm singing Freddie Freeloader.
That's pretty wild.
That's pretty wild, man.
That was set up. And that's the great powers of the universe set that up. Oh man.
And Freddie told me he liked the lyric. He said, "Yeah, man, you got me."
You got me. Oh, okay. Because John wrote a set as well, I think, that are different.
Well, yeah, and he did a great job. He did a great job. He recorded with a lot of famous people.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound so flattering to Freddie sometimes. Free booze,
yeah.
free dues. That's Freddie.
Yeah, yeah, but the great recordings, great, wonderful. Yeah, I write lyrics. I do. I still do, and it gives these certain jazz songs a shelf life that they might not have had, because sometimes instrumental music it's too intense for certain. More people buy rhinestones than they buy diamonds. Okay,
yeah.
And when you put a lyric to an existing instrumental solo, I mean, the most famous of probably is like Moody's Mood for Love.
Oh yeah, all my students learn it. All my students have to learn it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the sound. I don't want to sound pejorative, but that kind of thing brings in the squares. Okay, it brings them in to our tradition, to jazz.
Well, what I've always talked about vocalese, and I came to it late in the game, and it was Lambert Henderson Ross clearly that introduced me to vocalese, and Eddie Jefferson. Eddie Jefferson, maybe a bit of King Pleasure, but it was really Lambert Henderson Ross and Jon Hendricks. It made me aware, and I teach improvisation at William Paterson, and one of the things I want to tell the students is when you improvise as a horn player, whatever, even scatting as a singer, you're making statements, and the vocalese thing to me clearly makes, especially when you pick a great solo,
right.
One of the really a clear solo with clear melodies, and you're forced to put lyrics on them. Mm-hmm. It's like you realize, oh, this works, and I can put a rhyme here because this player went da 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 da, and then they go da bo bo bo, So it's like I can put a rhyme at the end of that because these two phrases are similar, but you have to be able to think in those terms too.
The 3 dimensions. You have to think in what rhymes, and you have to sound like the instrument. In my tradition, you have to sound like the original instrument. The word has to sound like the sound that the instrument made. Right. Like Miles' solo on Kinda Blue. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.
You cleared up my head. Now I can walk with kings and keep the common touch too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a 3-dimensional puzzle. To do that, the right words, to sound like the instrument, and to make sense, and to tell a story. There's 4 dimensions actually of effort.
And you pick the words that work with the rhythms of the where the horn player played. Like if it's a short note, you're going to pick a certain word. If it's a high note, you're going to pick, the rhyme Fred and.
Thank you, Fred.
What's the next line? There's a rhyme there after that.
You cleared up my head.
Right, cool, and it makes sense too. It's like it rhymes, it works with the notes, and it's telling the statement makes sense. I mean, that's talent.
It's autobiographical. My lyric to Freddie Freeloader is autobiographical. I struggled. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, and I lied to him for like 15 years. Yeah, I'm going to be a doctor. But really, my heart was in jazz. I was driven, and Jon Hendricks took me to a club in Philadelphia called Peps. And the Heath brothers were playing. And Freddie was the bartender.
Oh, really? Wow.
Freddie was the bartender. This is when he had a job. And he was when the band started, he would stop serving drinks. He would shush the audience. And the bandstand was at the end of the bar, up on a riser, and he was such a fan he was the ultimate listener, okay. And I realized, and he didn't play any instrument, but I realized at that point, watching this ultimate fan, that what I was doing had meaning to somebody, had a deep meaning, and I should pursue it, and go full throttle about being a jazz singer, because if, you know, my dad, rest in peace, he was the bouncer at Small's Paradise in 1935.
Oh my God.
And he saw how jazz musicians lived, and but the struggles that we went through with the segregated audiences and the black bands and the white audiences, and you know, he didn't want me to do. He wanted me to be a doctor. But since I was a little kid, since I was 5 years old, I knew I wanted to sing, and you know, that's what I want to do. I want to sing. It makes me feel good in the throat, and my mom paid more attention to me when I sang than when I screamed at her.
There's a motivating reason. Listen, I think we have to wrap things up now, but I have had a ball talking to you, and there's so much about your career people should know about. We didn't even talk about the recordings, the people you played with, all the things you've done. But people are going to enjoy this great set, which is about to come up.
Thank you. Thanks, Pete.
And then I can't wait. We didn't even mention any of the songs you're going to sing, which is great. So it's no spoiler alerts. Every song is going to be a surprise. And man, I cannot thank you enough. You're the perfect choice for this, man. You're the perfect choice for a lot of things.
Thank you.
But certainly one of them is this, and the love songs and the way you can deliver a song. So folks, enjoy the show. Marion, thank you very, very much. Thanks for coming to Sittin in, folks.